everyone, this is Kerwin and Keith, the Father-Son Galaxy.
Hi.
Just want to start off by apologizing. Last week, we planned to review the first 3 episodes of Ironheart, but we did have some difficulties.
We kind of got cooked by technical difficulties,
right.
so we're doing it all now.
What we're doing today is we're going to do the entire spoiler. We're going to do a spoiler review of the entire season,
which is arguably better because I can lay out all my criticisms and also things I liked in one big episode.
Yes, so that's fine. And we have a lot to cover.
Good luck.
I'm glad you're watching or listening to us. Let's get started. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the main characters, right, and discuss their similarities and their differences in the comic books, between the comic books and the series.
Totally.
So let's run down the episodes. They're called Episode 1, Take Me Home, written by Shanaka Hodge. Episode 2, Will the Real Natalie Please Stand Up, written by Mallory Howard. Episode 3, We in Danger Girl, written by Francesca Gales and Jacqueline J. Gales. All 3 episodes, the first 3 were directed by Sam Bailey. Episode 4 is called Bad Magic, written by Amir Sulaim. Episode 5, Karma's a Glitch, written by Christian Martinez. Episode 6, The Past is the Past, written by Shanaka Hodge. The last 3 episodes, directed by Angela Barnes. Okay.
So they kind of had the writers switching off with each other per episode, yeah?
Yeah, that's interesting. But, they had some kind of consistency with having the directors, 2 directors.
So it was like arcs, kind of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, all right. So let's see if this worked. All right. So for me, the question that this series had to answer for me was, why did Riri choose a life of crime? Okay. When I feel she had other options.
Yeah. So, she gets kicked out of MIT because not only is she committing academic fraud by selling her inventions to other students and then using the money to fund her Iron Man suit, she's also committing major property damage. Like, she blows things up at the start of the episode. So the dean tells her, yeah, you got to get out. And then Riri starts launching into a little tirade about, oh, you guys want me to be small, but I refuse, as if she's not staring face to face with the dean of MIT. Like, telling the dean at MIT that their school is small is like looking at Gordon Ramsay and telling him his cooking is bad. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, Riri Williams is a character from Marvel Comics. So she was introduced in Invincible Iron Man in 2015.
Actually, a decade ago.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
She was introduced a decade ago, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually not that far away. And she had her own comic series in 2018. And yes, you're right. Yeah, well, in the comics, she is an MIT student. I can't tell you whether she graduated or not, but she definitely wasn't kicked out of MIT. And my thought is MIT is like one of the more premier educational institutions in the country.
Yeah, one of the world's biggest.
Right, and it's very competitive to get into a school like MIT. So why would you want to waste that opportunity?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what else? I don't know why she would go to MIT and then try to... Because the strategy that I think she was using is to stay there and use the grant money to build her suit.
Right.
But if she's using MIT's grant money, did she not factor in that that's owned by MIT and that the suit is their property?
Yeah.
In all legal terms? Because exactly what happens is that they basically digitally repo the suit and she gets kicked out of it in midair, which is pretty dangerous. Because imagine if she was just over concrete or something.
Well, she was really when she fell to the ground.
Yeah. I don't know how she survived that, but she did.
Yeah.
That's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Apparently, we understand that the suit does belong to her, but the way she walked out of the lab, she started to put some tools in her pocket.
Yeah, not only did she steal the suit in full view, she was also taking a few things from around the lab.
Tools, yeah.
And the 2 security guards who had one job, just the one, of escorting her out the front doors, which is exactly why they're there, start having a side conversation conveniently, so Riri could suit up and fly right past them.
Yeah. Regardless of whether she owned the suit or not, they made it. She made it look very easy that she can get out of there without anybody noticing. And taking some tools with her, which definitely didn't belong to her because she was stuffing them in her pocket.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
I'm surprised because the police know where Riri lives. They show up in episode 3 to question her about Stewart. So I have no idea why MIT didn't send the cops after her to arrest her for not only robbing the lab but also stealing their suit. Like, you would think that would be a federal crime. It was a very well-documented event. She fell out the sky onto a busy street and kept wearing her suit while walking around.
I'm glad you brought that up.
In Chicago.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll probably talk more about that, but there's a lot of crime going on, and no one gets arrested in this series. Nobody gets caught.
Well, except for Ezekiel.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, I was referring to
the crew.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, he gets caught for a different reason. But yeah, this, of course, Dominique Thorne. This is her series. She is the best in this series. The best acting, gives the best performance.
I agree.
Of course, we remember her from Wakanda Forever. She was a great character, and she does deserve her own series. But they're taking the liberty of saying, okay, well, she gets kicked out of MIT. What is her option? She decides to get into a life of crime. Now, I don't know why that is her only option, or that's the one she chose. Because it's not. Because, right, you did mention that MIT provides grants. They get private donations, I'm sure, that would have been able to fund her project. She could have called Wakanda and talked to Shuri about it. It's a funny, I'm jumping ahead, but there is a part in the series, I think it's episode 5, where she is simulating calling Riri and telling her, well, I got kicked out of MIT, calling Shuri that I got kicked out of MIT and that I ended up with a gang of criminals. Well, first of all, you could have made that call before you decided to join the gang of criminals. So,
because, you would think it would be an interesting plot point to have your main characters start at their lowest point, because it can only get higher from there. But Riri just starts low and then goes lower.
Yes.
I don't know what she was doing throughout the show, but the point of a character arc is that it's just that, an arc. It starts, it dips, and then it comes back. But Riri's is just like, it's just like a straight line.
So that maybe, again, that's the question that we need to find out. Why did she choose a life of crime? Out of all the other options, why did she choose this one? So we're going to keep going and see if we can figure out why this, the writers or the character thought that this was the best option.
And one more thing. She has proof of concept because she flew through the sky in an Iron Man suit, and that was made with MIT's grant money and only about 4 years of work, which, if you think about it, make it a giant metal suit that's flight-proof and all the things that Iron Man suit could do in 4 years is pretty good as far as a development timeline. So you would think she would want to go to a big tech firm like, Oracle or Microsoft, and say, hey, man, I got this suit. Y'all want to help me build this? I know those are more like software companies, but still. Could you imagine if Microsoft patented an Iron Man suit?
How about that? Right. And, and that's not out of the question because, Tony Stark has already done this. So if she came and said, well, I have my own suit, this is what it could do. And, right, she goes to like one of these billion-dollar companies. They might have offered her, money for her project,
to build the suit,
which is what she wanted, right?
Because companies are not. It's like Shark Tank. They're not going to invest unless they see a clear profit margin and that you're actually going to deliver. And if she did deliver previously, first of all, it took her 4 years then, so you should probably be able to cut down that timeline. Consider that she's building something she already made. She didn't have to do crime.
Again, let's get through this and see if maybe we're missing something. Maybe this was her only option. But okay, so we're going to move on to the next character, Natalie Washington. Okay, this is played by Lyric Ross. I saw this actor from a show called This Is Us, a few years ago. Now, Natalie is also a character from the comic books. Tragic story that happened to Natalie and Riri's stepdad. They were victims of a drive-by shooting. And neither one of them survived.
Riri survived, though. She was there.
Well, okay. Yeah, you're right. So Riri did witness it. I think it was just maybe her stepdad and Natalie that were in the line of fire, and they were the ones that got hit.
Well, they were all in the line of fire, except Riri didn't get hit because her stepdad shielded her.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, rest in peace.
Yes.
Resting in peace is something this show does not let Natalie do, unfortunately. throughout the runtime. She's reincarnated 3 times. So if you count her being alive the first time, and then she dies, and then the AI Natalie shows up, and then the AI Natalie dies, and the real Natalie comes back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Quite the
But
timeline.
yes, you're right. Okay, so at the end of episode 1, so Natalie returns as an AI, like you said, and that's also in the comic books. You know, we do have a AI Natalie, a hologram of Natalie, and she is given an acronym, right? So Natalie stands for Neuro Autonomous Technical Assistant and Laboratory Intelligence Entity. All right, so that stands for Natalie. And I thought Lyric Ross gave a good performance. I thought she was very good.
Yeah.
I liked her character. I like where the story went with her and some of the things that she went through, which we're going to discuss. But you know, good chemistry between the two actors, I think, with Dominique Thorne and Lyric. Okay, you're smiling. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking.
Okay. All right. All right. Next character. I want to move on to you know, he had a very small role, but it was a very important role. His name is the character's name is Xavier Washington, who
What
is
a guy.
who is actually Natalie's brother, who is also a character in the comic books. All right, he is played by Matthew Elam. Um, so, and what's nice about this character is that they stay true to who he is in the comic books. So in the comics, he's a big Star Trek fan. And we saw in this series that, you know, we saw him quoting some lines from Star
Spock.
Trek. Yeah, Star Trek 2, which was pretty cool. But he also dropped in the series that he's a Star Wars fan as well. So, you know,
Which is interesting.
Makes sense. But that was pretty cool. And he's a musician, which he is also in the comics. And he did a sample that he wanted Riri to hear based on a Nina Simone song. And that they brought Nina Simone into the series by playing her song called Cinnamon, right? It's a big popular Nina Simone Nina Simone song. What I like about this actor in episode 4, when he actually, now he was not aware that Natalie returned as a hologram, as an AI. That's something that Riri created. And then when he actually saw this AI for the very first time, his sister, I thought his reaction to seeing her was genuine. It felt real. And I just wanted to give kudos to this actor, Matthew Elam. He did a really good job. When he
pretty good performance in that scene.
Absolutely. So when he saw her, you know, he said to her, you know, this is, you know, it's a natural reaction. He said, you know, Natalie is dead. I'm honoring her. And he, talking to Riri, you know, he's honoring her, but Riri is freezing her in time, right? And that, you know, Riri is faking that she's still alive. She's not real. Make it. Didn't even refer to the AI as she. He said, make it go away and delete it. And at that point, Natalie did leave for a good period of time because she was very upset that her brothers felt that way. But I understand it. You know, like when we were doing the first 3 episodes last week, the question I asked you, and I know, you know, it's a very difficult question to even answer, but just talk about what would happen within 20, 30 years from now where we can walk side by side with a hologram of someone either we're meeting for the first time or the hologram of a past loved one. Could that really happen? How would you feel if you had that opportunity to walk alongside someone who you knew from your past?
I don't know, man.
Yeah. Right, that's what
like if it's a dead person, I don't really like that as a concept.
Yeah.
Because you gotta move on at some point. You can't just drag yourself through the past over and over.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very tricky. Again, you know, if it's somebody that
ethically
you
speaking
never met, you know, you don't know their backstory and where they came from. I guess, you know, it's still a hologram. It's not a real person, but you know, is this where technology is going in the next 20, 30 years?
Who knows?
But
I think we're too busy trying to figure out how to get a spaceship off the ground without exploding. Elon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, drop some politics in there. All right. Okay.
I hate politics.
Yeah.
Except when I don't.
Again, Xavier Washington, that character, Matthew Elam, very good job. Let's talk about Parker Robbins.
Oh boy.
All right.
Yes.
Parker Robbins is the Hood, played by Anthony Ramos. I also want to talk about his cousin John because both characters are also in the comic books, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Hood was introduced, he had his own comic series in 2002. Parker is actually and his cousin are actually from New York City, not Chicago. And so John, who's played by Manny Montana, which, in my opinion, I thought he was behind Dominique Thorne, one of the best actors in the series. So we'll talk more about John. But
I liked his performance.
yeah,
He seemed like
so,
a chill guy.
Right. Yeah.
Until Riri killed him.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. That was interesting.
I can't wait for this episode by episode part.
So John and Parker are cousins, okay, and they're also cousins in the book. Parker's cousin's name is John King. They never mention the last name of the character.
It's probably King.
Yeah. So what they do is they're criminals, right? Partners in crime. They go and just raid, steal things, and just heist whatever is available to them. So in the comic books, there's a storyline where Parker and John plan to raid a warehouse. We don't know what's in the warehouse, but apparently there's some valuable goods in there. So they go to the warehouse, and instead of finding, valuable items, they find a demon.
Mm-hmm.
And the demon actually goes after John and attacks him. Parker pulls out a gun
and kills
the demon.
Yeah, killing a demon with a gun is kind of crazy work. Yeah. And then, loots the body and steals the hood and boots.
Right.
And then he becomes the Hood.
Right. Exactly.
Ooh, spooky.
Yes, so,
you have no idea how many jokes I'm going to make about this.
That's all right. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so that's the backstory in the comic books. The Hood is played by Anthony Ramos. I'll be honest with you, it's not my favorite actor in the series. I don't think, to me, Anthony Ramos didn't look like he was having a good time playing this role. And,
I don't think anybody really had a good time.
Yeah.
Him and Alden Ehrenreich did not seem to enjoy being there.
I think Alden, it started off okay for Alden Ehrenreich's character, and then it just dropped.
I can't wait to talk about him.
Yes, I can see that. Yes. Okay.
No.
All right, so you talked about the Hood. In the comics, he stole the Hood from this demon. So the Hood apparently gives him the power to go invisible, and the boots that he steals from the demon gives him the power of levitation. Okay, we don't see him levitate much in the series, but he does disappear from time to time. Yeah. Okay. The Hood, the actual cloak itself in the series, looked silly. I don't know if it.
Mephisto called him out for it. He's like, right now you look silly, and eventually you'll look cool. Should never happen.
I'm very surprised because usually when a character's in a hood, like a robe, like a Jedi robe,
like Palpatine,
a cloak, it looks cool.
Yeah. Or you remember Luke when he showed up at the Mandalorian with the hood and the lightsaber and just started cutting down droids?
Yeah, the same hood he wore in Return of the Jedi.
Exactly.
Whether you're a villain or a hero, hoods, if you're in a hood, it's pretty cool. This one, I don't know. So either he didn't feel comfortable in the hood, or maybe it's the design of the suit, the material. I don't know. Yeah. But when we first saw him in the hood, he's wearing it in daylight. And he turns around and he takes off the hood, and it just looks terrible. Yeah. It just I don't like the hood.
The common theme of the other hoods I mentioned? Most of those scenes are shot either in dim lighting or in the dark.
That's true.
Which probably helps to add elements of mysteriousness, that's not a word, to the hood. Because the Predator movies? Trying to show the Predator in daylight does not look good compared to the masking of darkness. So I think it's kind of the same effect here, that it looks better when you can't really see it as well.
Yeah, I again, like they could have done a better job with the costume design of the hood. But yeah, it's just something he just threw on, and he doesn't even, like what he wears under the hood is sometimes he's wearing a t-shirt.
It's just clothes.
He's just looking, like, okay, I'm just going to put on jeans and a shirt and my hood and walk out the door.
He's treating it like it's a jacket.
Yeah, it's not working for me. Okay.
It's funny because you think you want to match with the hood, and look cool and evil. No, that didn't happen.
Now, remember I said that in the comics, Parker and John are from New York City. Riri is from Chicago.
So they've never met in the comics.
As far as I know, they have never met in the comics, but here they do meet this time around. And Riri knows of Parker because, Riri, again, is trying to find some money that she can raise to fix her suit.
Yeah.
So she decides that she's going to work with this guy and pull off these crimes to make her money.
Mm-hmm.
How much money is she really going to make, stealing?
Who knows? And it's dirty money.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. The way Parker operates is like a mafia. Because if you leave, they don't do loose ends. They will hunt you down, and they will eliminate you as a threat.
Yeah.
So Riri's kind of backed herself into a corner by joining the gang. Like, if she had just left when she should have, they probably wouldn't have hunted her down because she knew nothing about the operations. But she's in too deep by episode 3, so...
Yeah. So, all right. So that's what she decides to do. She's going to work for Parker. Of course, he has this gang of thieves. They don't seem very competent. They just want to make money. Parker apparently just wants to take ownership of the companies that he's stealing from. We'll talk more about that. All right, let's move on to Joe McGillicuddy, played by Alden Ehrenreich.
So he is a black market arms dealer who has a bunker filled with a bunch of illegal weapons. So naturally, Riri, she needs stuff for her suit before this heist. And what she does is she shows up to this random guy's house and she's like, hey, I know about your illegal dealings, and if you don't let me steal your stuff, I'm going to report you to the FBI. And naturally, he starts crying while he's basically driving this lady, blackmailing him to his secret hideout where he's hiding all his gear and stuff. So, yeah, Riri's like, oh, don't cry about it, be strong. And he's like, bet. So Riri robs him and then kind of flies off, does her mission. And then in episode 3, we find out that this fellow is actually Ezekiel Stane, the son of Obadiah Stane. He keeps his dad's ashes in a plastic Ziploc bag. Yeah. Very tasteful.
Yes. So they apparently, father and son, did not get along. And when you saw this episode, you got very excited when he revealed himself as Ezekiel Stane.
Yes. It's kind of funny how all of a sudden the MCU is going back to 2008 so often.
Yeah.
Remember with the leader in Red Hulk, A Brave New World, and now bringing back the Stane family in Ironheart.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that as long as it makes sense. I mean, I bought it that he was the son of Obadiah. One of the things I think Marvel has a problem with. It's not the first time. They over-explain a lot of things. Like when he revealed himself, Joe revealed himself as Ezekiel. Riri had to explain to us, the audience, who Obadiah Stane is, as if we don't already know.
I hope so.
I don't know why they do that.
Because if you watch Ironheart, you certainly watch Iron Man.
If you've seen Iron Man, as soon as you drop the name Obadiah Stane, wow. But they needed to explain it to us. But anyway, so, okay. Now, you want to talk about the biomesh? Yeah. Well, before I do that, I just want to tell you, of course, Ezekiel Stane, is also in the comics. He's a superpowered villain, and he was the enemy to Tony Stark.
And he's a cyborg.
Revenge. He wanted to get revenge on Tony because of what Tony, what happened to Tony.
So Tony killed Obadiah indirectly. Yeah. And then Ezekiel wanted to spin back for his father.
Right.
But here he doesn't really care. He's just like, I wasn't really close to him. Which is interesting because at first he said that the bunker made him feel close to his dad. And then he says that they weren't close. And then he starts talking about how he didn't want to become his dad. But then he gets power. And then he's like, I understand where he was coming from. His arc is very confusing. And I don't really know why he's there for most of the show.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, all right. So, did I already say this? So, Zeke Stane is a superpower villain. His first appearance was in The Order number 8 from 2008. All right. You want to talk about the biomesh? What is this? What is it?
Oh, boy.
Biomesh in episode 3.
Yep. Riri Williams.
Yes.
So, what she does is she goes back to Zeke, or actually Zeke shows up at her house, and he's like, hey, come here, I gotta show you something. And then he starts showing her the prototypes and stuff, and I don't know what happened to him, but he had some weird thing in his arm, and she had to fix it. And she not steals, but she kind of asks him for this biomesh thing. He's like, here, you can have it. So the way it works is it acts as skin. So if you're passing through, say, a metal detector, it will mask whatever metal you place under it, and you can pass through safely. So naturally, instead of sewing it to her sleeve or using some 3M and sticking it to her arm, she just kind of lets it hang there.
She just wraps it around
in her sleeve. Yeah. She doesn't even use bandages or anything. She just has it sitting there. So naturally, when she tries to use this laser thing, the biomesh slips down and the metal detectors go off, lock down the facility that she's trying to rob, and CO2 starts getting pumped into the greenhouses. And by the way, of all the times she picked to go try to steal a piece of Parker's cloak, she picked in an active mission, one of the most dangerous yet, where she slips up with this metal detector, they will all die. Great work. So she runs, because naturally guards start showing up, everything goes south, and even though she should have mapped out the facility already and known where she was going, she ends up in John's greenhouse. John's like, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you in your suit? So he notices that she has a piece of the cloak. They start throwing hands, and eventually they run out of air. So, by the way, while they're fighting, don't you know that that biomesh is just hanging out of her sleeve, falls while they're scrapping, and she doesn't even notice. It just sits there.
Yeah. So this was all, just to go back, what's happening. This is another heist that Parker is planning with his, crew to steal from the CEO of this popular company in Chicago. And you're right.
Heirloom.
Things go horribly wrong.
They go south so quick, you think it's the I-95.
So, is John and Riri ends up in this chamber where, you're right, there's no oxygen being pumped in, and the two of them can't breathe. Riri has, Riri is saved, right?
Because she calls the suit.
She calls the suit. Natalie in the suit calls the suit, gets inside the suit, blasts off, and leaves John. She leaves
John in the dust to die.
And John didn't make it out.
Okay? Yeah, and you know what? I'm not even that mad about that part, because it was a self-defense kill. John would have probably killed her. She probably could have reasoned with him, but, ain't nobody got time for that. So, a part that gets me actually mad is after she kills him, and leaves, the Hood is like, hey, where's my cousin? You see him? Is he in the greenhouses? And she flies over talking about, oh, he's in the greenhouse. He's not moving. I don't know what that means. Like, she didn't kill him 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, so she pretended she had no idea what happened to John.
Disrespectful.
Yes, but you know what? Look, at the end of the episode, you could tell that she was very this traumatized.
Yeah, she had a panic attack, she does every episode.
Well, this one, she had a panic attack. Natalie's trying to get her to calm down and breathe, and so she knew what she did. Yes, it is a self-defense, but still, she let a man die when she did have an opportunity to save him, but maybe things are happening too quickly, and she just wants to just get out of there. So John is gone.
Yeah. So after Riri's finished having her episodic episode, we get to the Hood, and he's like, "Why, God, why?" And then Riri's silhouette shows up, and he's like, "Oh, it's you." And episode ends. Got to episode 4.
Yes. Okay. Now that biomesh that was left behind, the police find him.
Yep. And they track it to Ezekiel.
Yep, trace it back to Ezekiel.
And he gets put in jail.
Yes, exactly. Now he's upset because he's in jail and he trusted Riri and she failed him. So now he wants to... Now, of course, again, just like in Captain America Brave New World, I don't know... Marvel, please stop doing this. Okay. They're using the media, like this
news
broadcast that comes in to explain everything that we already know about Joe and who his dad is, again. But anyway, so Zeke is upset, and he decides that he wants to now become his own superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides,
what a guy.
Yeah, and now he decides that he's going to... I don't even think he gave himself a name. He just came out, doesn't have a suit, but he has power of electricity.
Yeah, so the Hood shows up at his jail cell. He's like, "Hey, bro, I'm gonna break you out," and then he leaves and he goes to Parker. And he's like, "Hey, how about we put some metal in my arms and work with that?" So they do that, and he gets electricity powers and stuff and super jumping. And he just unlocks all the free play mods.
Yes.
And also, while they're doing that, don't you know that Slug switches the admin from Ezekiel Stane to Parker in the terminal in episode 4?
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I caught it, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together until after the fact. So, Ezekiel thinks he's acting out of his own free will, but he's really not.
Right.
I don't even remember what Riri was doing this episode. I just remember that. And now, episode 5.
Yeah. So
Riri's at a White Castle, and the crew breaks in, and they start throwing hands inside a White Castle. Somehow, none of them die, even though Riri's bonking people with fire extinguishers and clowns throwing explosives all over the place, just messing everything up, blowing things to smithereens. We'll continue that later.
Okay, all right.
Let's remember the rest of episode 4. I just remembered.
Yeah, we'll get there. So, one thing I wanted to say about Ezekiel. So the plan was that he was going to kill Ironheart, Riri. And at the last minute, he decided not to. Yeah. And then he was going to go back and tell Parker that he did. Just
as usual, being so non-committal.
And that's a good point. I did not know about the admin thing. Well, I knew that Parker could control Zeke, but I didn't know how or why. But now I'm watching the scene where, now Parker, he has to do everything that Parker tells him to do. And if he doesn't do it, he's going to be forced to do it, whatever, like forced to walk this way or forced to, knock this person out and knock that person out. And there was a scene when Parker's headed into a mansion of a person's home.
Yeah, his dad.
Right. And then he's
just throwing hands with the guards.
Yeah. Now, was that supposed to be funny?
I don't know, man.
It looked like a joke to me. That
I think all of Ezekiel after episode 3 was a joke.
So I don't know if, this is supposed to be intimidating, seeing Zeke throw people around.
Oh, and his haircut was awful.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did to him.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't think it was pretty good for his character. But I let's move on. I want to talk about Zelma Stanton. Another character from the comic books. Okay. Now, this is when Riri and her mother go to visit the Stanton shop, sweets and all the kinds of good stuff. And they go in there. Riri wants to know more about magic. And the reason why is she's understanding now that the hood that Parker wears has some kind of magical abilities to it.
No, really?
Which is the reason why she took a piece of his fabric, right?
What a genius.
Back in episode 3, she wanted to get it examined by somebody who knows about the mystic arts. Yep. So she goes and visit her friend and her mother.
But let me be clear. So the way she does this is that her mom has a heart-to-heart with her. She's like, hey, you're all right. I want to make sure you're safe in these streets because you're doing some crazy things. You're acting crazy. And her mom is a spiritual person, so she's like, hey, do you want to go get, like, a spiritual cleanser or something? Maybe that'll make you feel better. And Riri's like, oh, yeah, totally. So they go to Riri's mom's friend's daughter's shop.
Yeah.
And they go through, examine the cloak, and then Riri's mom's friend kicks them out the shop. And she's like, nah, that's demonic. Get that out of here and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then Riri has a falling out with her mom because her mom was lied to. And she's like, you made me think you needed some sage and crystals. And instead, you were bringing some demonic stuff into my friend's shop and didn't even tell me first. And then Riri has the nerve to not only start cursing and getting aggressive at her mother, but fly off. Like, she treats everybody in her life like crap. Like, from Natalie, who she bullies around and calls her not real and tries to delete her, to Xavier, who she kind of blows off occasionally, to her own mom, who she's honestly the worst to in episode 4, Ezekiel, who she is so careless that he ends up getting framed. She's a criminal, but she doesn't even try to break him out of jail. She just lets him sit there until Parker, who's actually a better guy, or better person than Riri is, goes to free Ezekiel. Like, everybody in her life can see that she's a pretty bad person.
she's making some bad decisions with people who are very close to her. I mean, her family members at least.
Especially her family.
We know she doesn't get along with the crew, the criminal crew, but her family she's having some problems with.
Crittens.
But let me go back to Zelma Stanton. So she is a character from the comic books. She appeared in a Doctor Strange #1 from 2015. Okay, now Zelma is played by Reagan Aaliyah. Zelma walks into
Sanctum.
Yeah, right, the Sanctum in New York City. So Zelma's from the Bronx, all right, another New Yorker. She walks into his mansion and wants him to deal with these maggots, these brain maggots that are growing out of her scalp.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah, right. So this is the comics. All right. So if you remember in the scene when Riri and her mother are in the shop, right? Her mother, Zelma's mother is Madeline, played by Cree Summer. Riri's mom picks up a jar of maggots, right? And then Zelma says, "Don't touch that." All right. Once they get in your brain, they kind of hard to get out.
Nice reference.
Right. Now we know why. All right. Because she had those maggots in her brain. Yeah. So that's the connection there. But you're right. So the event that happened after that, that was pretty intense. I thought it was a good scene between she and her mom, even though you're right. Riri did run off and not talk to her mother and just left her there in the street. But
and you know what's funny? After all that, her mom, Natalie, Xavier all come to help her. And even Ezekiel spares her after the way she treats all of them. And even that little kid she stole the wheelbarrow from.
Yes, right, yeah. So before we get there, Dormammu, did I pronounce that right?
Dormammu.
Okay. And Dormammu. All right, so there's just a couple of name drops that Zelma mentioned. Dormammu, a demonic entity, and you got Caecilius, a sorcerer.
Yeah, Caecilius.
Were these two characters in Doctor
Strange? Yeah, Dormammu and Caecilius were in Doctor Strange. Okay. The first one, not the multiverse of badness.
Yes, right. Okay, got it. All right. One thing that Zelma said, that magic comes at a price and sometimes it's a heavy one. Remember that line because that's very important. So we're going to get back to that. We could talk about episode 5 now. You were talking about the White Castle scene.
Mm-hmm. Throwing hands at a White Castle, of all places. So Riri is having a nice meal with Zelma. They're going over
White Castle.
Yes, those two words have never been in the same sentence before. Yeah. So they're eating at a White Castle, and then the Blood Twins show up and start slamming heads, and everybody flees. Riri starts fighting with them. The Blood Twins start hopping counters. She's throwing fire extinguishers at them. Sends one to heaven with a hit. Like, the sound design of the fight was pretty good. Like, you remember?
Die?
No.
Oh.
But should have.
Oh, okay.
Like, getting hit straight in the head with a fire extinguisher should send you to heaven, you know?
Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Okay.
So, eventually, after all that, she drops that watch. So, she made a watch to protect Xavier and her mom from the Hood, who never made any indication that he was going after her family. Yeah. But, like, it's fine. I suppose she took lessons from what happened with Namor and decided to be proactive. But Xavier hands her the watch back after the junkyard scene, and she drops it during the fight. So she provokes the Blood Twins into shooting her, and that triggers the thingamabobber. And
a force field.
And it's like a little orb that traps them in.
Yeah.
So she just kind of runs, and then Cloud shows up, blows open the door, starts throwing explosives all over the place, and then, don't you know, the Marvel physics of the sea were crazy. So I don't know what happened, but I know there was an explosive close to Clown. So she starts trying to hop the table, but she only gets halfway over it because her legs are still close to the explosion. So, naturally, her legs should have turned into spaghetti with sauce. She was perfectly fine afterwards. She was just coughing. And, in natural Riri fashion, she just leaves her suffering there and then goes outside to get the suit and starts fighting Ezekiel. Lovely. And don't you know, in this squaring up with Ezekiel, he doesn't even kill her. He just rips off a little piece of her suit, and he's like, hey, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go tell Parker that I killed you. Doesn't even come up with the story beforehand, so he just starts swinging it, and then Clown has to back him up. But don't you know, Riri just leaves her... I keep saying don't you know. But Riri leaves her suit on the floor, in the middle of the street, outside of a White Castle that's populated. And remember all those people that ran out? Imagine one of them got in their car and saw the suit on the ground and decided, hey, let me take this, and then sells it on the black market for millions,
exactly.
and then they're rich, and then there's an Iron Man suit
and
circulating.
They make more money than Riri does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, food for thought.
Right. And then the truck scene.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the Slug shows up, driving a truck, and Riri flips their truck and flips them off, and yeah.
That was a pretty
She says
cool
hello
scene.
to the camera.
She says hello to the camera, yeah. That was a pretty cool scene. I
thought it was funny.
Yeah, I liked it. I
feel like that was a bit of a self-insert moment.
Oh, is that something that you...
Oh, the writers and their reaction to the film.
Okay. Well, we don't want to cause trouble.
I'm kidding. No hate to the writers.
Yeah.
Please don't come after me.
The only thing about that scene is I wish they would have held it back and not put it in the trailer.
Yeah.
Because it gave away, okay, we know how it ends. We don't know how it got started, but, I thought it would have been better served if we didn't know that scene was even in the series and we saw that. That would have been really cool. But it was cool anyway, regardless. All right. So, All right. The new suit.
Oh, my God. So, Riri makes a suit out of her dad's car, Transformer suit. And
it's better looking than a Transformer suit.
All those people she scored come back to help her. And, yeah.
And friends, yeah.
Yeah, those people she's obligated to spend time with, a.k.a. her family, come back to help her out. They build this new suit, and, Zelma, she starts doing her Scarlet Witch thing, starts casting runes and stuff, Yeah. And they put the stuff in the suit, but as they do that, Natalie starts disappearing and glitching out.
Yeah.
So Riri tries to back her up to the computer, and it doesn't work. She gets deleted, unfortunately, which sucks.
Yeah. So apparently the suit can either work with magic or technology, but not both.
Yeah. I think there was a bit of a goof in the writing, because I think there was a line in there that was like, oh, the suit can't handle Natalie and the magic, but at some point in episode 6, they say they don't know why it happened. And Riri also tries to go back and recreate Natalie with the same process as before, the things on the head and the computer, but they never explain why it doesn't work. Yeah. They just show that it doesn't, which makes no sense.
Yeah, I get you. All right, okay.
But yeah, Natalie's gone for the next 30 minutes unless she shows back up.
Okay. Now that gets us to the last episode.
Riri.
And one more character appears.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about finally the arrival of Mephisto.
Yes. Okay. It's just Borat.
Now, I didn't tell you this, but I actually heard a rumor. It might have been leaked out in the news somewhere that Sacha Baron Cohen was going to be in this series playing an undisclosed character. All right. So now we know that Mephisto was also going to be revealed in the series. And here we are down to the last episode. We saw neither one. So I guess that gave it away that, okay, one is playing the other. Now, Sacha Baron Cohen, he's been around for a good while, at least 20 years, because I knew him of his sketch comedies. Like he had an HBO show called The Ali G Show. He also played Borat, like you said. And I honestly have not seen him in anything else. I know he's done other things because, he has a good resume here. So he has... he's a Golden Globe nominee. He's been nominated for a couple of Academy Awards, one for Best Supporting Actor in The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I did not see. But I understand he must have been very good if he was nominated. So I was a little surprised to see him in this role.
As was I.
And I was hoping that maybe it would have been I was hoping that it could have been more of a
scary actor.
No, not necessarily scary, but a veteran actor. Who we say,
like
wow, that's a good question.
Could be a cast.
I don't know.
It should be Tom Holland.
I think not Tom Holland, no. I honestly do not know because, to me, like the veterans are like, Robert De Niro. Like I know he wouldn't play anything like this before. Who?
Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan as Mephisto.
Because he was Dr. Fate.
But right, and he has an accent, apparently. Right? Because I know Mephisto, the way Sacha Baron Cohen plays.
Yeah, he was British.
British
for
accent.
some reason.
Yeah, I mean, Pierce Brosnan is Irish. I would have been okay seeing Pierce Brosnan as Mephisto. That's a
Yeah.
good one. That's a good one. Yeah. All right. So anyway, so there's a scene where Mephisto and Parker are sitting together at a pizza shop.
Well, it's a pizza shop that's upstairs from their lair.
Okay. All right. Well. All right. Fine. Well, let me go back and say, well, Mephisto is one of the more popular supervillains in Marvel Comics. All right. So he started off in the Silver Surfer issue from 1968, and he has been everywhere. Like, so he's
Yeah,
had
he's beef with
run-ins.
Ghost Rider, Doctor Doom, Spider-Man,
Exactly.
especially Strange, Scarlet Witch.
Yes, he's been around, right? Okay, so now, um, and then let me say this, like there is a slight difference between the Hood comic and the series because the Hood, that the demon that Parker kills in the comic books was actually an entity of the Dormammu, but not in this case because it's apparently Mephisto is the one that gives him the Hood.
Which
All
is
right,
interesting because you would think it would be Dormammu. I don't know why they changed that
I don't.
because we haven't
Well,
seen the man in like 10 years.
true, right? But I think because Dormammu is already in the MCU.
Well, they established him in Doctor Strange, but it doesn't really make sense to bring in Mephisto. Actually, I think Mephisto might have a bigger role in Phase 6, considering they took the chance to change the lore and add him to Ironheart.
Well, yeah. So we know for sure Mephisto is going to be seen in multiple places. He could show up in the next
Secret
Spider-Man.
Wars, even.
Yeah, right. I mean, he could show up in the next Spider-Man movie. He could be in Secret Wars. He could be in Avengers, Doomsday. So this is a big role for Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But for me, again, to me, it feels like he's playing a character in a sketch comedy. It's not like he's really acting, in my opinion. So, look, let me know if you think that Sacha Baron Cohen was the right choice for this
Yeah.
role. All right, so the two of them are having pieces together, and of course, he's asking Parker, well, "What do you want? Tell me what is it you want? What?" And so Parker says, "Well, he wants to be stinking rich. Um, he asked the question. This is very important. You're going to give me everything I want?" And then Mephisto says, "No, of course not. I'm going to give you the tools so that you can get yourself everything that you deserve." And then
Yeah.
Parker says he wants to be a king. Like, okay, all right, well,
If you want to be a king, go to
sure,
Wakanda or something,
okay,
man.
all right. So then the next scene, we see him being a king in quotation marks, eating, all this
Lavishly.
food that he's never going to finish. Um, he's a crook. He steals from people, so he can be rich. That's not what a king does. And,
Yeah.
he's getting revenge on his father. Well, they're going to talk about this now. So all this trauma, or, the reason why he is committed himself to a life of crime is because he has a father who abandoned him at a very young age.
Yeah, a real piece of work.
Yeah.
Kicked
Well,
him out the house at 12.
12 years
You know
old.
what's crazy? This guy did not care. He's just like, well, I didn't want you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have the whole story as to what happened. Not that it should be an excuse for kicking out your 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Look, we don't know what Parker did at 12 years old. He could have committed a crime. He could have killed somebody. I don't know.
Well, I doubt it, because if he did, his dad would have definitely brought that up at his defense.
Yeah, okay. All right. So anyway, we just know that Dad did not want his son. He abandoned him. He disowned him.
Dad was a jerk.
And Dad actually is a very wealthy man.
Yeah, so we come to find out that all the crimes Parker's been committing is investing into his dad's companies.
The companies that his dad's company invests in. Yeah. So
yeah.
shareholder.
So he becomes a majority shareholder
right.
at a bunch of the companies that his dad is invested in.
Right.
And basically seizes his assets and his house. Don't know where he got all that food from.
Yeah.
But he has a little banquet with him and Ezekiel.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah. There's a lot of holes.
Little tea time.
Yeah. Now, first of all, okay, you're the silent partner in these corporations, and you're still not in jail. No one has turned you in. there are no lawyers coming after you saying, they want to sue you because, you don't, this company doesn't belong to you. Nothing.
Yeah, and it's not how shareholding works.
Yeah.
You can't just become a majority shareholder. You got to buy out other people's stocks. So unless they just inflated or deflated the stock value so that Parker could get himself in, everybody's shares just got decreased so he could get a bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah, well, so let's get back to the conversation that he had with Mephisto. Mephisto asked him, what do you want?
Money.
Yes.
Cash.
But is that really what he wants? Well, okay, there's a difference between what you want and what you need.
Only pay for what you need. Liberty, liberty.
He wants money. He wants to be stinking rich because his father's rich. But what he needs is his relationship with his father to be reconciled.
What he needs is a job.
Why didn't he ask Mephisto to reconcile with his dad? Because you know what? That would have solved all of his problems. He would no longer need to be a criminal. He would have his inheritance.
He would have money.
Yes. And
power.
And he would be living a lifestyle of, these rich kids, doing whatever they do with their money, because that's all this is about. Because he lost his inheritance. Now he has to scrape and scramble for what he needs because his dad didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
So that's what he should have asked for.
You would think.
Not to be stinking rich. I mean, anyway.
But anyway.
That's what the story called for.
Riri throws hands with Parker, rips the cloak off him. And don't you know, this cloak is basically like an addiction for Parker. So while he's going through withdrawal, curled up in a fetal position on the floor, she just kind of leaves him there, like what Sam did to Walker in episode 5, and just walks away like a jerk once again. As she goes upstairs, Mephisto shows up, and this is when it gets idiotic.
Okay.
Because don't you know that after she has seen exactly what that cloak and that deal with the devil did to Parker, turned him into that ugly, rabid, vampire bat-looking creature, she goes up to Mephisto. Mephisto's like, "Hey, what is it that you want? What do you truly seek in life?" And after all this, she practically sells her soul to get Natalie back.
Yeah.
After she just brought her back.
Yes, right.
And then died again, and she just wants to bring it back. How does she know that's going to work?
Right.
How does she know that Natalie's going to stick around? And why would you sell your soul to essentially the Satan of the MCU just for your friend when you know that you're going to die?
Let's talk about this. So this was very interesting when I saw this happen.
It numbed my mind.
Now, okay. One thing I want to say about this series is that there's a lot going on in 6 episodes. And what is happening in these 6 episodes usually takes another series like 2 to 3 seasons to really unravel. I think things were happening too quickly. Where, in the first episode, you join a criminal organization. In the last episode, you make a deal with the devil. Like, okay, well, what happened to Riri?
Imagine the character progression. Yeah. Like, one episode, you get kicked out of MIT. End of the series, you sold your soul.
This is not the Riri we saw in Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Like, because that Riri was actually smart.
What is happening here? Right, yeah. And you're right, so, she made a deal. We didn't see it happen, but in the next scene, Natalie.
You know what's funny about the scene? They cut it between Natalie coming back and her speaking with Mephisto, and they tried to play us like she didn't make the deal.
No,
like we couldn't see it.
But she absolutely made the deal because Natalie comes in flesh and blood. And, Natalie's, first of all, like, well, so, where's your dad? Like, I don't even know, at what point is she coming back in her life? Like, is this before the shooting or after the shooting?
Probably right before.
Maybe right before. Hold a pin in that. All right. So Natalie touches Riri, and Riri touches Natalie. He's like, okay, well, you're real. And then they hug each other. So we know that's what Riri wanted. She wanted her friend Natalie back.
Yeah. And as she's hugging Natalie, she gets the scars up her arm.
Yep. Right. Yeah, because now now Mephisto is in control.
Yeah, so she's got like a week tops.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Let's talk about the mid-credit scene, and
Let's
then
not.
we're gonna wrap up. This is real quick. So in the mid-credit scene, Parker, lost his hood. I don't know what happened to the hood.
Riri confiscated it.
And what did she
like
do
a
with
mom stealing her devices from her kids.
And do we know what she did with the hood?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think she gave it back to Mephisto.
I don't know. So Parker walks into
hoodless.
First of all, right, no hood. I don't even know how he knew who. I don't even know how he knew to find Zelma.
Yeah, good question.
He walks into her shop and asks for some pure magic. Like some heavy duty magic.
And you know what's even funnier? Yeah. Zelma, being a master of the mystic arts herself, should have noticed the scars on Parker and noticed that he was being controlled by some demonic entity and kicked him out the shop, like she did to Riri. Yeah. But she doesn't do that, and she actually seems to entertain the prospect.
Right. And maybe if somebody who has, magic and mysticism would have sensed that there's something wrong with this guy. Like, don't give him what he's asking for.
Exactly.
But we don't know. So, all right. So going back to the question that we're trying to get the answer to. Why did Riri choose a life of crime?
Good question. I don't know.
All right. I have an answer.
A theory.
Yeah.
A film theory.
The reason why she chose a life of crime is because that's what Marvel wanted. It does not.
For the plot.
It does not serve the story because, again, these two characters have never met in the comic books, right? They're from two different cities, but we're bringing these people all together so that Marvel can introduce magic into the Riri storyline, which I don't know why.
Probably.
It feels very inorganic that you would want to bring these two characters together that have nothing in common, except because Marvel said, well, we want them together because we want magic.
Yeah.
Riri to get involved with magic. At this point, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. I just have to rely on the point that maybe Marvel knows what they're doing and they're doing this for a reason, and then maybe they're creating her as not an adversary, but maybe an accomplice for Dr. Doom. Maybe is she going to be working alongside Doom? Because now we have Tony, who's a scientist, now working with the mystic arts as Dr. Doom. We got Riri, a scientist, now involved with the mystic arts. So the two of them, are they going to be like, the team up? Up against the Avengers? I don't know.
I actually have another theory as to why they wanted to introduce Riri to magic as part of her character profile. Maybe to make her different from Iron Man. Because, the main criticism of Ironheart is that she's a successor to Tony Stark's legacy. Yeah. And she's like an imposter of sorts, which is interesting. But that's a topic for another day. But maybe they wanted to do that so she had a different power set and motivation than Tony did. So that they could call her different.
Yeah. To me, they seem the same, though. I don't see any difference now because you have a scientist who is now involved in the mystic arts.
Yeah. And who should be a successor to Tony Stark? Rhodey. Because Rhodey was Iron Man in the comics.
Well, that's
Wasn't he the Iron Man during Secret Wars?
Yes, he was, yeah.
So wouldn't that be a great thing to do? I don't know what happened to Armor Wars, but it's somewhere in the void chilling with Loki.
Yeah.
So
or Blade.
Or that Blade movie. Yeah. I saw a post that said Mahershala Ali was on an interview and he said, call Disney and tell them I'm ready to shoot. So they haven't even filmed. I don't know what's going on with that one.
Well, they need a screenplay. They don't even have that yet.
But my point is, instead of making Ironheart, they could have just done Armor Wars and not only put Riri in a different story where her role would fit and make sense, but also establish Rhodey as a new Iron Man so we would have one going into Secret Wars. And then it would be faithful to the comics. Yeah. And it would be cool because we haven't seen Rhodey in the suit since 2019.
That's an excellent point. I don't know. Marvel seems to... This is the direction they want to go. We got to just see how this plays out. We don't know.
I have no idea what they're cooking.
Yeah, and then two other things I want to say is that it's really unconvincing for Riri to, a scientist who knows nothing about magic, to actually believe in magic.
Yeah.
Never been introduced to magic in episode 1, and then finally not only believing in it, but be at a point to make a deal with the devil, even if she didn't know if he's the devil.
You would think she could put two and two together.
Stranger. You know, like, who are you talking to, and why? And then, was she not aware that she might have been talking to somebody who, you know, who may be out to harm her? I don't know.
Exactly. Like, how would you feel if you hear a knock at the door and this random dude who looks like Sacha Baron Cohen shows up and says, "What do you want most in life?"
Yeah.
You know what I would do? Shut the door.
Yes.
I don't entertain telemarketers.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just. We don't recommend anybody making any deals with the devil. You know.
Yeah, for goodness sake, please don't.
You know, sometimes the devil, like, you don't know that the person's a devil because
yeah, they have the saying "devil in disguise" for a reason.
Right, devil in disguise. So just
but
be careful. You know what you ask for and who you're asking from.
And it's funny because Mephisto made no efforts to seem benevolent. Yeah. He was doing the demon voice. He predicted what Riri was going to say. Apparently, you could see a tiny glimpse of his reflection in a spoon, and he looked like an actual demon.
Yeah.
So, like, you would think if he's actually trying to get Riri's soul, you would want to pretend like you're out to help her, but he doesn't. And you would think Riri, with her MIT level intellect, could read into that situation and be like, "Hey, you seem untrustworthy. I'm gonna leave."
Yeah.
Now I know hindsight is always 20/20, but you would think at least in the moment she'd have some semblance of hesitation, because when she went to Parker and his gang, it took her the rest of the episode to actually decide to join them. But she did no deliberation here.
And she stayed with them. You know, it's not like she got the money and left. You know, and she came back after John died. She said, "Well, you know,"
had the nerve to show back up at Parker's place of work.
Do you have an assignment for me? And you know, I don't know, but
talking to him like she didn't kill his cousin 24 hours ago.
And you know, this is the first time I've seen criminals get away with everything, and not one person gets arrested.
You know what's funny? In episode 5, the whole crew just gets on the elevator and leaves, and we never see them again.
Right, we never see them again. So
you would think they would have at least ended up in federal prison or got their own lives.
I don't know.
And by the way, you know what would have been really cool?
What's that?
You remember Sacha Baron's character from Agatha All Along?
Yes.
Imagine if she was the one running the magic shop. Wouldn't that have been cool?
That would have been a nice,
a nice little reference.
Yeah.
But I think those two. Actually, Ironheart finished shooting in 2022. So while chronologically Agatha came out first, I don't think the show had filmed yet.
Well, that's a good point, right? Yeah. So the timing didn't match up. Yeah, but we have magic already introduced in the MCU. We got Doctor Strange, and we got Scarlet Witch, and we got Agatha. Now we have Riri. It's like, and then one other thing, and then I'm done. Seriously, I'm done. Riri making this deal with the devil, and to bring Natalie back, reminded me of that What If episode. I will never forget it because it's just so impactful.
What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hand?
Exactly. And in that storyline, if you have not seen it, I'm going to spoil it for you.
You should totally watch it, though.
Yeah, but you absolutely have to watch it.
Yeah, see it.
Strange was in the same situation where he lost his loved one, whether his girlfriend or his wife. I don't know.
Christine.
Yeah,
I don't think they were dating yet, but he liked her.
Yeah. Okay.
And then she died in a car crash, and he kept trying to reverse time over and over, and it drove him insane. Right. And he eventually wrecked the timeline. Yes. Everything went to black goop, and he was just sitting in a void of nothingness with nothing to do except think about his actions.
Right. And the moral of the story is that, things happen for a reason. Like, it's not a good idea. You gotta let life play out. Like, I understand that you lost a loved one, but you're not in a position to say, okay, well, I'm going to bring her back and have her for me anyway. Because what kept happening is every time he would revive her, she would die, and then she would come back, and he would, and then she'd die again, and then she'd come back. I have the feeling, unfortunately, that the same thing's going to happen to Natalie. If we see these characters again, like, how long will Natalie survive?
Don't know.
Yeah. So.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I remember Stephen Strange. It's a shame we never got to see him past episode 9 of What If.
It's not funny. Okay. All right. So
as far as I'm concerned, episode 8 and 9 was a completely different Strange in season 2.
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't remember season. Is it season 2 or season?
Yeah. Remember when he turned evil and tried to kill Captain Carter?
Was that season 2?
Yeah, season 2.
Okay.
Why?
We're not going to go down.
Why was Captain Carter in all 3 seasons?
We're not going down there. Okay. All right. So that is it. Anything else you want to say about this series?
No hate to the creators and talent in the show, but it was a part of my French. bad.
Okay. All right. Not Secret Invasion level bad.
Oh no, it's nowhere near Secret Invasion.
I thought there were some good elements. Again, Riri, Dominique Thorne, great character, great actor. Um, I think she, maybe could have been better off with a better supporting cast, a stronger script, a stronger storyline. But again, I don't know why we're introducing this character to Magic when we already have Magic in the MCU, but we'll find out.
Can you believe they made Ironheart before they made a Fantastic Four movie?
Yeah.
Before Blade, before the X-Men.
It's okay. Yeah.
Before my GOAT Logan.
It's fine. It's fine. These things are coming. Okay.
They made this film before they introduced Miles into the MCU. Just put that in your head.
That's quite all right. I like Ironheart. I like the character. I understand what you're saying, Keith. It's fine. Miles is coming.
They made this movie before the DC show, before the DCEU died.
Okay, I think that is it for this this episode. All right, so that is
we have fun.
This is our spoiler review of Ironheart. Honestly, I don't know if there's going to be a season 2.
I don't know, man.
I don't know where that would happen. My guess is we'll probably see Riri somewhere in maybe the Avengers movies, Secret Wars, perhaps. But a season 2 of Ironheart, I think that's unlikely, but I don't know. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us on this spoiler review of Ironheart. Okay, Keith, where can people find us?
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, socials are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fathers of Galaxy, website fathersofgalaxy.com. Please check out our merch store, fathersofgalaxy.myspreadshop.com, and our Patreon page, patreon.com/fathersofgalaxy. Please donate. I need money.
Why don't you go join a criminal? Don't do that.
You know what? That's a great idea.
Don't.
I'm going to go find a man with a mysterious hood and ask him if I can join this criminal gang.
Yeah, no. Don't do that. July is here. Superman's coming. Fantastic Four is coming. So looking forward to that. All right. So we'll talk more about those.
I'm going to be flying to the theater July 10th to go watch this movie.
Yeah. Great. All right. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in or listening to us, however you hear us or watch us. Until next time, take care.
And we will see you again.